Welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy Presents our CFL DFS picks for Week 3 of the 2017 CFL season. I'm excited. I was a big college football fan. I'm still a big college football fan, but when we had DFS, I really enjoyed it. There's always an edge to be had when you look a little deeper, and a lot of people don't have time to do that. CFL, not that hard to look deeper. There's only 9 teams. There's only 8 teams playing on a weekly basis, so we're not talking about roughly 108 teams playing each weekend with college football. But there's still not a lot of information about it, which is always challenging. Fortunately, by next week, we will have a CFL premium package set up. Haven't decided on exactly what's going into it yet, but I know that I'm very excited about it. I have consecutive back-to-back top 5. Maybe the last one was top 6. I can't remember. So first week I finished second in the big $4 tournament. Last week I finished either 5th or 6th. This weekend I'm hoping to just take it down. You know, I feel like I owe it to myself. I'm going to try my hardest. There's only so much you can do when you actually have no ability to get on the field and play the game for them. But I'm hoping what we have here is a good start to the year. I'm very excited about the premium package because I've been able to have success thus far. I think I'll be able to help other people who maybe want to play but don't play because they don't know as much. I've been really finicky about putting up premium packages in the past. My mentality has been, I'm going to write something about this, and I'm just going to say this flat. Every day, I've been doing Research Fantasy for 18 months now, maybe even a little bit longer. I think we're at 19 months. I have not monetized our product for the specific reason that I'm not just trying to chase money, right? This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. Every day, I see sites pop up, and I'll catch them through, various filters I have set on social media and some other tracking services, and I'll see that blankety-blank DFS just launched today. Join our team, $35 a month. Bet we're going to be good. And I'm just thinking to myself, what in the hell is wrong with you if you go sign up for a package like that? This organization has shown no ability in the past to bring you information, to give you any kind of an idea of if you're worth it. But yet here they are out of the gate trying to sell a product. There's no A/B testing. It's just boom, here's what we have. I want to make money off of you. And that stuff needs to end, and it needs to end fast because the consumer, in my opinion, is definitely being taken advantage of. And there's reputable organizations that do well out there because they don't just push something out there. They don't give you direct just because they want to try to capitalize on something. That's not going to be us. I'm not putting anything out until I'm confident with what we're doing. I'm there with the NBA for next year. I'm there for CFL this year. I am damn close with NASCAR for this year. And I'm not too far behind with golf. So a lot of fun things coming down the pike. We're not going to rape your pocketbook. That's not what we're after. Would love to expand our team with passionate, like-minded individuals who love daily fantasy, who love season-long fantasy, and really just want to be heard. That's what it's really all about. Enough with my 4-minute preamble. I'm prone to rabbit trails, so I'll make a comment. I'll put a comment down there to skip to about the 4:30 mark if you actually want to hear CFL talk. It's going to be an interesting week this week. I'm looking at all angles for how I want to attack. Personally, one of the strategies I'm going to be using is the Daytona-Talladega strategy, which if you're not familiar with NASCAR, that strategy is basically forget what the salary cap says. There's no number there. You just put the best possible pieces into your lineup and move on from there. Personally, I believe we have several receivers that are still absolutely laughably priced. I think what this week will do, all you have to use is one cheap receiver, and I'll mention a guy in a little bit when we talk about receivers, all you have to do is use one cheap receiver, and basically you're forced into spending like $7,400 on every other position. All right? And that includes after you've put in a quarterback for $10K and a defense. You know, I was trying to test this out to see how it ran. So what I do think is, despite how poorly he's playing, I think you're going to see the likes of Arsenault, Tasker, Dressler, McDaniel, all the guys like 76 and above see higher ownership because of the fact that people want to spend their money. There's this assumption that if I don't spend my money, I'm missing out. I don't necessarily think that's true. I'm going to give you my favorite options. I'm going to give you one quarterback, one running back, two wide receivers. Defense, pretty much I just like BC. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made. I think Saskatchewan's going to be extremely popular in all areas this week because Hamilton didn't look good the first game. So I do think you will have a bit of an overreaction, and I'm willing to eat the overreaction if I'm wrong this week, because people are expecting Kevin Glenn to go out there and throw for 506 yards because that's what Hamilton's allowing on the season in their massive one-game sample size. And I get it, we've only got 2-game sample sizes for most other teams, but the point I'm trying to make is I think there's going to be a ton of stock put into, and just look at all of those combined things, like Trestman coming back in. You don't know what this Argonauts offense is really going to look like. I do think it took Hamilton by surprise. It did not take BC by surprise. I do not expect it to continually take teams by surprise. And conversely, I think that now that Hamilton's had a week to sit back and kind of see where things went wrong, as long as their offensive line, which cost me over $2,000 the first week, holds up better than it did against Toronto, I think you're going to see a completely different type of game played. And we've seen what Kevin Glenn is doing, and I think that they could do something to not give up 500 yards again. All right, anyway, let's start things off. Below Levi Mitchell, always an option we could use. I want to pivot to Matt Nichols, 8,600. And why not Kevin Glenn? Well, for all the reasons I just mentioned, there's no guarantee that this team's going to go out there and put 500-plus yards. And with the ownership that I think he could carry, because of the fact that people will be like, Hamilton's that bad, we need to take advantage of them, I'd rather just go to Nichols. Again, I can completely agree. We've only got a 2-game sample size. Calgary allowing 360 yards in the air both times to Trevor Harris. I believe this Blue Bombers offense is legit. They've got good weapons. They've got good weapons in the air. They've got good weapons on the ground. I think Matt Nichols is in prime position to pay off that $8,600 salary. Would not shock me one bit if Nichols was the highest scoring quarterback at the end of the week. So I think you're getting a deal there. I think that you're always going to have Bo Levi Mitchell. I think you'll have Trevor Harris now that he's produced solidly in 2 straight games. I think you'll see those guys carry higher ownership as usual. No Mike Riley on the slate this week, so you're not going to have that pivot there. But I really like the idea of playing Nichols this week. Running back, for me, it's Jeremiah Johnson, 7,400. Yes, he's the highest priced option at the position, but I think that he should be able to feast on the Alouettes, who are allowing 91.5 yards on the ground. Doesn't really sound like a lot, but you have to take into consideration that this is the CFL and not the NFL, and there's not going to be huge running totals each week. Johnson has thus far looked to be the only positive sign on this offense. I guess Brian Burnham hasn't been bad, but I think if Jonathan Jennings is able to get things going, it's only going to benefit Jeremiah Johnson. I just really think you're sitting at a floor of 15 points. And quite frankly and honestly, if the offense gets going, I do think you could be looking at upside approaching 30 points. Because look, if he gets 2 touchdowns, breaks 100 yards, right there you're looking at probably 29 fantasy points, and he's going to catch a couple passes out of the backfield. So by no There's no reason that's not a possibility. No reason at all. Wide receivers, where do we want to start off? If you read my article, I actually like 2 guys under 5K. I like 1 guy, 6,800. That's Brad Sinopli. Ottawa's a team I think is going to continue to throw the ball. Their running game is still in flux a little bit. It might be William Powell. It might be Moises Madou. Who knows what it's going to be. But I think this is a team that likes to throw the ball a lot. This is just a terrific situation in my opinion here. Sinopli, in my model, has basically one of the best matchups on the slate. I just don't think you go wrong at 6,800 here. The biggest concern is it's hard to see Deontay Spencer not having massive ownership this week after what he did last week. Typically, I'm not a let's hop on this guy and ride him type guy because that always sets up as a fantastic game theory play. I think that Sinopli, regardless, should end up being the lowest owned of the Ottawa receivers. But I do have legitimate concern about Deontay Spencer potentially getting some of those scoring plays. I don't doubt that Sinopli is going to see his targets and see his receptions, but Spencer's got game-breaking speed and ability, and that does concern me when it comes to his overall upside. But it's not something that I'm really going to worry too much about. And then honestly, I don't have my model open, and it's going to take me like 3 minutes to open it, and I don't want to delay the video. But just offhand, I know all the Saskatchewan guys stack up really well in their particular matchups this week because of the fact that, Ricky Ray threw for 506 yards. And looking at individual matchups, only 1 game worth of that. Most of the positions say that they've given up over 100 yards to that position receiver. I'm not buying that. But some of the other guys that I know popped favorably, Emmanuel Arsenault actually does have a favorable matchup this week. So I wouldn't hesitate to do that. I believe Darvin Adams in a good position as well. And some guys that LaDamian Washington, like he's going to go so ridiculously overlooked because you're just not going to have to spend down there. There's going to be this threshold, I think, where guys could legitimately just get cut off because people want to spend their salary and they start putting in guys like Sinopli and they're like, oh, okay, I have 6,800. I'm not wild about these other guys at 4,200 or 8,200, so I'm going to spend it 7K and 66. And you're going to see a lot of those guys not in big position, not in high ownership positions, and that's how you win tournaments. I mean, Armani Edwards last week wasn't very highly owned. Devier Posey was a laughably low amount owned the first week. I could easily see LaDamian Washington being a guy, and I probably have the name wrong because I don't have Draftkings open. I don't have my sheet open. I'm just going off the top of my head. 2 receivers that I really like this week under the 5K mark. Lemar Durant, 4,700. Nick Demski, 4,300. I really don't think you can go wrong with either of those plays. Durant is another matchup that's actually highly favorable. Think he's going up against a rookie cornerback who's just been feasted on thus far. Lemar Durant has really been making things work. This is a depth chart thing for me. It's going to have to be a wait and see what's happening with DeVaris Daniels. So hopefully we get, clarification on that soon, because I did read he could be back as soon as this week. I think that does reduce some of the upside for Durant, but it's still a good matchup. Nick Demski just doing everything and just gets no respect. Averaging 7 receptions, 84.5 yards, and half a touchdown a game, plus he returns punts or kicks, one of the two. Clearly been Glenn's favorite target, and I don't see how teams are going to say, let's shut down Nick Demski when you have Deron Carter and Naaman Roosevelt on the field. So this is like the perfect storm right now for Nick Demski because he's got 2 guys ahead of him, in theory, that defenses should have to shut down before they work on him. And I think he's just going to continue to do what he does at 4,300. If he can pull off 7 receptions, 84.5 yards, 50 return yards, and a half a touchdown, which I know sounds like a ridiculous thing, that is plenty enough for me, considering you're going to be floating right around 20 fantasy points. And I still think it's going to be at low ownership because I think people are just going to be able to pay up. So that'll wrap it up for this week. Hope you enjoyed. Sorry it was out a day late. Sorry it ran a little bit long. I got to really hone myself in when it comes to this CFL stuff. We'll be back next week with a more concise breakdown. We'll be back next week with an affordable premium package to help you really benefit the most from these next few weeks of CFL action. Once again, thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Visit us at researchfantasy.com. Like us on Facebook at Research Fantasy. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win. And join us again tomorrow.